There you are. Good to see you. What's up?
I am having a great day. I am enjoying this weather. It's very relaxing.
Oh man, several people. I mean, I slept really good, but I get up at like 4, so it
4:30.
gets like, yeah. I mean, I woke up super early, but I went to Fayetteville this morning to train with my friend Nate, and he was like, he slept in super late, and so did Cora. She slept super hard, she said. But I guess that rain is super relaxing for everybody, right?
Hey, Brian. I am having some audio problems, so I'm going to close out of some of my apps real quick.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
Let's see. That should be better. I think I can hear you now, and you're not glitchy.
Okay. I can hear and see you fine as long as you can, see and hear me.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. Yeah, so the weather, it's supposed to rain for like a week straight or some crazy thing, is it not?
I know. It's like 6 days of this, and it's supposed to be really humid and gross. So I'm trying to find gratitude and be like, well, this means I can float later in the summer instead of being like too low.
Yeah, I know. Well, so what have you been up to? What's new for you? Have things changed drastically? I mean, I still hear you on the radio and see you on social media all the time. So
Yeah, I feel things kind of have changed a little bit behind the scenes. The last time we talked, I was on a rock station, and now I'm kind of on a pop station, which is good for my career, but sometimes I really miss my rock people. I started my own business, so I do social media management and website design for like small businesses and nonprofits in the area, just kind of on a freelance basis. And then I have started volunteering a little bit more, so I'm doing some philanthropic stuff, just local. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, Cora and I are doing like we're doing something like that with like 10% of our income. We've been like we just got to a point where like it really benefits us, one, to do more philanthropic donating.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we kind of always have, and we direct a nonprofit as well. And I mean, that was kind of like our first phase of trying to get back, and now
She
we're
was
able to do
actually
more.
talking about that the other day, about how your community outreach program branched out and you're able to do more and stuff now, with Forza, which I think was really cool. You're able to reach more people. So thanks. That's cool.
Well, it's having more people involved, honestly. So, like, for example, the boxing club, right?
Mhm.
Like, I actually only teach that class 1 day a week now.
Oh,
Then this other guy, Tim, with the nonprofit through donations or, well, I mean, all through donations, 501c3, but we're able to pay Tim to teach the class. He's one of our boxers,
cool.
trained for several years. So he teaches it a couple of times a week.
Mhm.
And then same thing with McMillan. He volunteers and teaches the veterans and law enforcement and
I
firefighters.
love him. He's such a good guy.
He's so good. He's been on the
He's one of
podcast a few
the most
times.
sweet people. Yeah. I need to check out some of those episodes then. I like what you guys are doing, like doing more outreach and stuff. What I'm doing, like with philanthropic stuff, I volunteer and now sit on the board with River Valley Food for Kids. So I just didn't realize I didn't realize how big food insecurity was a problem in this area. So it feels really nice to, I guess, be actively addressing a very constant and prolonged issue, I think, in this area.
Did you see where, which is one of the guys that trains at the gym, but he is going to run like 24 hours for River Valley Food for
Really?
Kids. Did you hear about this?
No, I
Okay,
need to
so
like know more.
yeah, okay, so let me. Well, and you can. There's a video I did share it on the podcast page. It just came out last night,
Mhm.
but oh wait, no, it's not. I'm thinking Russ Bus. He's doing this for Russ Bus. Sorry,
Oh, okay. But still
right?
cool. I work with people from the Rust Bus. Nikki Stone, who works with Rust Bus, sits on our board for Food for Kids. But that's cool. So he's running 24 straight hours.
Yeah. Well, how crazy,
Is
right?
that safe?
No, no, it's a terrible idea. Super bad idea.
Like, is he trying to get a certain amount of money, like per mile or per hour? Or
They said stay tuned for how to donate. We're going to support. He's going to run over around Forza, right? And I'm going to run with him for a few hours, but and he's going to get people to kind of run with him and keep him company. And for, I guess he's doing something like for every hour that he runs, businesses or individuals are like either sponsoring an hour or donating so much for each hour, something like that, right? So I'm waiting to hear how we can kind of support him. But Micah Piker, he's a military guy, real cool dude. He did do you know what the Murph workout is? It's like, okay, so you run a mile, you do 300 squats, 200 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, and then you run a second mile. And he did
no
that.
Rests?
No rest. I mean, you could take rest because, I mean, it took me forever.
Because you might die.
It took me forever. I was sore, so sore. Well, he did one like 30 days in a row or something. This guy that's running this 24 hours. So, like, he's crazy. It's going to be awesome.
He's like a lunatic. He goes to the extreme. Yeah, I did a drop-in course the other day at your gym, and I just did 3 minutes of, like, half-assed squats, and it killed me. Like, I still can't feel my legs. So I need to get to his level because that's intense.
I've been just over this whole quarantine have been really doing a bunch of workouts. Like I did one of the Murphs with him on one day, but I did a couple of other 100 pull-up workouts and ran quite a bit. And I go run with this guy a little bit, like in the mornings. So, but Core and I've been hiking a lot. I mean, I've been exercising quite a bit, but it sucks that the fitness center's closed. So I work out St. Mary's. They're still closed down.
Yeah.
Major bummer.
It is. I'm glad that hiking is starting to open back up. I just read that Wicker Point and Glory Hole, and there's another place that just opened back up to the public because they were closed for a few months. So I'm very excited to get back out and about in a more safe and legal way.
Yeah, we did Little Piney Creek like 3 or 4 weeks ago, but like it was like right after it had rained and it was like super wild. It was crazy. It's like the craziest water I've ever been on, maybe.
Really?
But it was a lot of fun. I only wiped out one time on accident. One time was on purpose.
See, that's not bad at all. I've only wiped out once on a float trip, and it was because I don't really know the terms, but it was when like trees and brush is caught under the water and you don't really see it. And I fell out of my kayak and went down the river. It was fun though.
Yeah, that's exactly like similar incident. Myself, Colby, and Cora, all three got hung up by 3 different obstacles.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad.
I'm excited. I'm hoping to go on a float trip. I was going to go. My birthday's next month, and I was going to go to that Alanis Morissette concert, and then everything is canceled. So now we're planning a big float trip, and I'm actually it's bittersweet. I'm bummed about the Alanis concert, but I am so excited to just be out in fresh air with people. I think it's going to be like better than the concert almost.
Yeah, we had a ton of, I say a ton, like probably half a dozen concert tickets so we had tickets to that Incubus show. We had tickets to Roger Waters in Dallas.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've seen him twice, and I was so looking forward to seeing him again. What else did Cora had Alanis Morissette tickets. We had tickets to see Humphreys McGee at George's.
That would have been cool.
I know, like little George's.
A lot of stuff's getting like, I'm bummed. I had Incubus got totally canceled. Avett Brothers is getting postponed, but also get to use the tickets. So I'm hoping that good stuff gets rescheduled and that these venue seasons just aren't totally shot, because that makes me feel bad for like their coordinators. So you go to concerts and stuff all the time. I noticed that on your Facebook page. What's the artist that you've seen the most live?
Oh, Widespread Panic, 25 times.
25?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the furthest you traveled to see them?
Mexico.
Oh, you went to another country. That's pretty cool. Okay. So mine would be Dance Gavin Dance, and I've seen them 5 times. And the furthest I traveled was Colorado.
Okay, I want to see.
I'm never here.
I want to see Panic at Red Rocks. Panic holds the most sold out shows of any other band at Red Rocks. I forget what the number is. It's like insanely high, but they've been playing there forever. They first played there opening for Blues Traveler, believe it or not. That was their very first.
Oh, what an interesting show.
Yeah. There's a guy so their guitar player died in 2002, right? His name was Mikey Hauser. Well, the guy that was his guitar technician that actually played with them a lot for like this little 4-year period between until they got the guitar player they have now. I may have him on the podcast. His name's Sam Holt. I've been talking to his management people.
Get out. That is awesome.
Yeah, so like when their guitar player died, he filled in then, and they replaced him for a couple of years, and then that guy left. And then he filled in then too. So, and he like still sings and covers all of the original guitar players like solo. It's like, it's really sad, honestly, because that guy's like keeping that guy's stuff alive. Go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cool. I think it's cool to be in a position that what Sam Holt is his name, that he's in, like to be able to even fill in for something like that and to know the material, to be trusted. Oh man, to be trusted with that kind of stuff, dude.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be such a cool podcast. I am stoked.
Yeah. Well, and too, so like that's been what's kind of nice about this. I've been doing an influx like jiu-jitsu and MMA podcast, like, and that's why I've like been like I got to do more normal Life Unraveled episodes. I'm burdening people with the fighting. But you know, honestly, so many non-essentials are available to come on the podcast, like Sam Holt. He's like, I'm just playing shows right now from my house. You know, it's like he does. He like just like you see some guy named Rob doing, like he's doing.
Yeah,
the same
they're
thing.
doing a bunch of live shows and cool giveaways, and I've seen like these virtual tip jars. And I'm even hearing from some artists, like aside from the things that like Bandcamp and things are doing, they're actually making more money than they were prior to this, just because of the push to support the arts and how proactive and like almost in your face it's being. So it's bittersweet. They can't be in their preferred venues or with their crowds and stuff like that. But for some artists, it's really working out pretty well, and they're getting really creative with like how they're even performing. So it's been fun to watch.
It really has. It really has. I mean, I would say this across the board, whether it's a performing artist or martial artists, because there's so many martial artists that would never do a video. They just wouldn't. And now they're like, hey, here, I got tons of videos because I got to reach out to my students. And I'm like my coaches and stuff, I'm like my coach is like 58 years old. Like, he's not going to do YouTube videos. He's just not. Like, I stopped expecting it. But now he does. And I'm like, well, thanks, man. I don't have to drive. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'm actually okay. So a question about that, as people are kind of moving towards digital, when you started slowly kind of opening your gym back up, are you getting new customers and new clients from going digital, or are you kind of like facing an uphill battle and getting your normies, your in-person, to like get back into that routine?
It's a little bit of all that. Like, we already had a pretty strong digital presence. I had like 600 YouTube videos for the gym. But what was nice is like Cora and Dr. Aaron Claire and Jess and a whole bunch of the other instructors at the gym started putting out content to Hannah. So that was super helpful. So like now we have like 10 or a dozen yoga videos and like a playlist for that, and fitness kickboxing at home workouts. And so, but yeah, that did, I know like Hannah Butler did some sort of story on like some of Cora's workouts she was putting out, but like we've been getting an influx of fitness kickboxing and yoga people that are coming back in and signing up, because that's about all we can take new members for right now, you know?
Gotcha.
So, and kickboxing, like my kickboxing class that I teach too, which is more like for self-defense combat sports. But
so what is the difference in your class and then the fitness kickboxing class? Because I took the fitness one, but what's yours like?
We don't die, we just kill people. Right. See, so when you did fitness kickboxing, you died in there, didn't you? You went in
Oh
there and
my God, I'm
died.
still dying. I was actually on the bag next to Adrian, and I think I have this tendency, I look a lot worse than I feel. Like I get beet red, like almost purple. And he looks at me like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yes, I'm totally fine." Like I just look like a potato right now. I'm so sorry. But no, it was really, really fun. And it was, I think, one of the hardest hours of my life, seriously. But it was rewarding. So that was fun.
It is. And like you get a good workout in the class I do. It's just more combat oriented. It's more for self to like, hey, here's why we do this,
Mm-hmm.
versus like it being more about anaerobic exercise.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But
Might
we
be worth
just,
checking
yeah,
out.
yeah. Well, it is. It's good. It's good for self defense too. Like actually, like I think what was it, Wednesday? I had like, three or four women in there, something like that. So it's always been a pretty popular class with ladies too. But since we got the fitness kickboxing, that's popular with everybody. So
Yeah, there was definitely a wide range of people in there. It was super fun. I need to check out your self-defense class though.
yeah,
Do some damage.
yeah. When we're gonna be offering like rolling out a whole bunch more classes we just can't offer yet, like what we had planned to. We were gonna
Mhm.
start a new schedule 1 week before the shutdown, or 1 week after the shutdown rather. Uh,
Oh,
Shutdown happened, so we didn't start the new schedule. So we're adding like some Zumba classes. Like we haven't started those yet.
badass.
Yeah, I have an awesome Zumba instructor, Krista, and
Hmm.
then we'll add more yoga and hot yoga. Eventually, we're gonna, but like hot yoga is already full.
And I
Um,
don't understand that.
yeah.
No.
Uh,
Not actually all the girls, Erin, Claire, Cora, some of my other friends like, you should have stayed for hot yoga. And I'm like, no. maybe maybe next time. I don't feel like actually dying today.
so we put that room like on its own unit, like it has its own unit and its own
Really?
thermostat. So like you can really crank it up in there.
No, thank you.
Special flooring too.
So with
Yeah.
all of your like MMA stuff, I know you talk about like the physical component, and a lot of people, I think of that at the forefront. But I've been interested more about like the mental component. What's the whole thing about like getting your mind right before anything else gets right? Because I'm trying, not necessarily in a physical sense, but I'm trying to do that with some of my day to day, like getting my head right, and then everything else will kind of follow in place.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of martial arts is unique. It's its own thing, but like what I was saying, like with jujitsu, for example, when you're just getting crushed and you're tired, because like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how long you train, like you're gonna get tired eventually. It might take you 3 hours. It might be like or it won't take you 3 hours if you're going against somebody that's really good too. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like you get put in like some sort of like the reason that guy is running for 24 hours is because he's got to go back to this place that he visits a lot. Right. And people visit that place for different reasons. And it's a dark freaking place. And it's the mindset, like what I describe people as is it's that place you're at when you're running and you're like, I'm gonna walk now, and you start walking. Like
Yeah.
you start, but then like there's like depths to that, right? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
how much further do you keep going after you wanted to start walking? And like martial arts becomes that because I mean, it's you push yourself. There's a competition side, but like, I mean, it's a great workout. But like with depending on the art you're doing, or if you're training for a competition, or if you're competing, there's just so much. There's so much potential suck to it, right? And
Yeah.
you suck while you're learning it. So
Yeah.
like the and you know what the punishment is for sucking? Getting hit in the brain, right? Or getting your arm
Yeah.
popped, like, oh, I'm not going to tap your arm bar. Like that doesn't exist. So then it becomes like, oh, yeah, hey, good job not tapping to that dude's arm bar. Now your elbow hurts for like months.
So it's kind of like
Because you had
finding
it.
that
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. It's very, I hate to even talk about like say stereotypical ego shit like oh martial arts you're murdering your ego but I mean that like you are confronted with that problem of I don't want to tap to Hope's armbar because she's not been trained very long, so she's not worthy of armbarring me. Like that is a loop that people that will go through. Like you could have been trained for 2 years or whatever, and they'll be like, no, I'm not going to tap. But the thing is like, well, Hope's arm bar is pretty good. So you tap or your arm is done. And then you're in this weird headspace all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're learning lessons like, why did I get hit in the face like that? Right. And that's just depending. Like you could come and do all my classes and none of that stuff really happened to you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
There is that path too. Like you don't have to spar. The way we do the rolling, you could work with like somebody your own size, weight, even gender if you wanted. So but it's a real unique thing because man, you can like, I got up as high as like 235 pounds and I fought at 155 just doing martial arts.
That really does. I think that when you hear numbers like that, you're like, oh, it's totally in the head, or it's like totally about training. Cause it's like mathematically that makes no sense.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, I was just like, oh, I got this fight at 185, but I was still like a little overweight, and it's like, oh, I should run, I should do all these things so I could make this weight.
Yeah.
Right? So like, it was never like, now I'm like, oh, I just want to feel better, I want to sleep better, I want to have a better self-image, so I'm going to go exercise and do fitness. Before it was like, yeah, I got to weigh this much by this time.
It's cool that it's able to expand like that. And it's funny that you talk about how, you have to like find your limits and your breaking point and either like cross it or just know where it is. Like I've been doing that a lot with some of my, like the work that I do. I like trying to learn more behind the scenes and then actually doing my work during the day. And I get criticized a lot, especially from like my close friends and my family, like you're doing way too much. Like you're sacrificing your sleep, you're sacrificing this. And I'm like, listen, you have to push, to me, my opinion is you have to push yourself past your breaking point at some point so that you know where it is and you know what it feels like to reach that. Because I think unless you actually reach that, you don't know your full potential. And it's unfair. It's cruel to yourself not to know that.
Yeah, and too, like sometimes leveling, I kind of think about this, like sometimes leveling up's uncomfortable for you because that's like what I discovered, like leveling up. Like I'm like, oh, like I never thought I would have been capable of it, of the stuff I'm doing now. I leveled up. And like sometimes that's a process, like a breakthrough process is a hard, long struggle. And then sometimes when you're leveling up, like people are not, they don't see it for what it is. Like and then too, like I think like with just this like earned income and like the way that things are, you're not ever gonna make it out of the race of like, oh, did I pay my bills this month, unless you hustle like that, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like, and like that's with Cora and I, we've been successful, but like neither one of our parents are wealthy, like but we've been able to over time and through hustling to do a lot in the earned income quadrant,
Yeah.
So
I think that I deal with that too, because people think that some people, when they're viewing you externally, they think that what you're doing is just for like resume building or for notoriety. Because they only kind of perceive it through their own lens. Like, well, if I was doing it, that's what it would be for. And so it's hard. I've learned really uncomfortably, like over the past, I think years really, when it has solidified that, you don't need to, I don't pay attention to the other. I mean, you just don't pay attention, because when you start realizing that someone can really only understand from like their perception level, it's no fault on them, but it has no bearing on me. Like, so I feel sad when my parents are upset, but other than that,
I know I do, like honestly, I told this story on the podcast the other day, but like when I was getting my history degree, right? I had no supporters on that train, like in my family, like some people like, yeah, go do what you want. And I'm like, I will. But initially though, and I bet you could probably empathize with this, and I think a lot of people initially, if you don't have that support system behind like your dreams, right, you don't feel like you want to go do it. So I didn't go do it till I was 23, and you know, there was this delay of uncertainty. But it's like, I just watched this Joe Rogan's podcast, and it's like, Tony freaking Hawk. Like, look at what that dude was able to do.
Exactly.
With
Yeah.
skateboarding. It's like, yeah, dude, people hate on skateboarding a lot, but like, dude, you're like a bazillionaire and one of the coolest dudes ever. And that blue cartridge Nintendo 64 game is the greatest game and soundtrack of all time.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said the soundtrack, because that was the best part. But no, it's funny like that, because like I went to school to be like for music, and I was going to do music ed, which seemed to make more sense because I could be an educator, right? Well, then I dropped the education portion. Like I was just going to play my flute for the rest of my life. And my mom and dad, they kept having serious conversations like, now Hope, you need to make a living. Like, and so many people see about it as like bottom dollar, like to make ends meet. But I think sometimes that's from like a narrow viewpoint. I think that comes from people that either haven't had to or choose not to hustle outside the box. And so like I decided to do it because I loved it. It was like a spiritual thing for me. Did not get a job playing my flute. Then ended up starting in radio, and then all the feedback was like, you're just joining a dying industry. Like it's going to be null and void. You're trying to get good at something that's decaying. And then even, oh man, like with everything else, I gave them real statistics, like real Nielsen statistics about my industry. And they still don't believe it. Like people don't want to believe in someone else's happiness. And then they don't want to, it's an echo chamber. Whatever they heard the first time is just what they regurgitate over and over.
Well, and two, it's kind of strange. Like it seems generational. Like I was thinking about the same topic earlier. Like I stopped by, like, a lot of my family's from Hartman in Johnson County, right? So like right there on Horsehead Creek. So like I stopped and went down there and stuff. I was like, man, I wonder what my grandpa and grandma would have thought being alive, because they weren't alive when I started doing this, right? Like they didn't know that I was going to own a martial arts school and do the stuff that I did. So like, I wonder how they would have seen all of this, the history professor, all the stuff I got going on, because sometimes it just seems like, I honestly think my grandma would have super been a fan of it. But like with like our parents' generation, it seems like they just can't see out of what they were preparing for when they were our age and what they were seeing when our age.
Yeah.
Like all the new innovations and new industries that have come along. So many people just can't see it for what it is in industry.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes people, they try to like knock side hustles, but I think side hustle is in general is a complete industry. Like I was going to school and had my own gig, and I work full time and have my own gig. And then a lot of people view that, it's interesting. They view it as unhappiness or like lack of commitment. Like I'm just trying to spin all these plates because I don't know what I want to do, or I don't know what makes me happy. And I think that that's kind of interesting, because I always find something in these crazy tasks that I do that actually make me happy. Like I learn something new about myself. I learn something new about my community or my partners. And so in a sense, they might be right. Like I might not know what my happiness is, but I think that that's an interesting thing, because to me personally, I don't think happiness is actually a defined thing. It's a moment, and moments just keep happening. Like to me, I don't view happiness as like a destination or success as a destination. Like you just kind of there's some there's some metrics, like I need to do X, Y, and Z, and you try to reach those goals. But to me, those are goals. That's not success or happiness. And people are constantly like, well, when this happens or when that happens, I'll reach happiness. And I have to keep reminding them, like, no, it's just a moment. It's an isolated moment where you're trying to be present and be mindful. And then those moments keep happening. Like you create those moments to happen over and over. Yeah. And so, but it's hard to have that conversation because people don't view it in those kind of terms. And so you just don't get to talk about it much.
Yeah, I shared a quote on Facebook today, and I was trying to figure out, I read, I listened to it in a book that I was listening to the other day. And he said it where he got it from, but then I couldn't even find who said it on Google, because everybody has like repurposed it. But it's like a Buddhist principle. The path is the goal. Yeah. Right. Like if the end is the goal, like that's actually a pretty bleak existence. Like, oh, we're going to die.
Yeah.
But it's like, what's the path? Like some people never find their path. I found my path, you know? So
I think that's a good way to put it, because, and there's different, I think, versions of that same thing, you know, like happiness is a journey and, you know, all those cliches, but I hate to call them cliches, but they exist for a reason. They've been repeated over time and kind of ingrained. And I don't know, I wish people would be okay with whatever their journey is and compare themselves to themselves. Like, I am my own metric. I'm my own worst enemy. And it's, especially like with my age and especially being a girl, I find this really hard, but comparing myself to the timelines of other people. Well, so-and-so had this much money when they were 26, or this person had a great career in their own thriving business by the time they were 30. And often we just think about, well, they were this age and they reached that, but we don't hear their backstory. And so I just try to remember, like, well, this is, where was I a year ago? And this is where I'm at now. Like, it's just growth after growth after growth, and just comparing myself in my lane rather than everyone else's lanes has been hugely beneficial and actually keeps me inspired. If I kept comparing myself to everything else around me and what other people were kind of expecting my results to be, I was really miserable and sad and I didn't enjoy what I was doing. So now I'm just like, I'll do my own thing. And it sounds calloused and almost selfish, but it's not. I think it can be healthy in moderation.
No, that's, oh man, like how much, this is another cliche quote, comparison is the thief of joy. So like, how much do we compare ourselves to other people and worried about perceptions, and we're not going to do this because these people might think that, you know, in that like steers like our decision making, when it's like nobody can think about in a big picture capacity for you other than you. I think like your parents can for a window, like they're got to get you to 18, but like then all the big picture thought is on you about what direction you're going to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, having comparison be the thief of joy. I think sometimes we want to, I think sometimes it's even maybe subconsciously self-sabotage. Like if we're doubting ourselves, or, you know, I didn't reach quite what I wanted to reach, then we start that really negative dialogue about, well, it's kind of, it's reactive. Well, you start getting bummed out about yourself, and then you think, well, this person had, you know, this going on, because it's human nature, I think, to want to reinforce whatever you're feeling with some kind of whatever logic you come up with, whether it's rational or irrational. And I've been I talk to some of my listeners a lot about practicing happiness. And what I'm dealing with right now, I get called out all the time for being naive or phony or fake or whatever, because they're like, there's no way this girl is this positive all the time. And I'm like, hell yeah, you are totally right. Like, I am not positive all the time. And for me, you just have to practice, like you practice your jujitsu and your MMA. I practiced my flute for years. Like, you have to practice something to perfect it. Like, it's not instinctual to speak positively when you really kind of want to go play in traffic. And then, so I'm getting it from that end, like from the external side, that I'm, you know, naive. And then internally, sometimes I combat feeling phony. I'm like, am I lying to these people? Am I lying to myself? And then I have to think, no, you're changing your inner dialogue. Like, it's not about, you don't need to give power and energy to something just because it's the first thing instinctually that happens. Like, and so I deal with sometimes feeling fake, because I'm like, well, I don't feel happy and I don't feel positive and I don't feel like I want to set my intention. What I really feel like I want to do is go yell and scream and maybe punch something. But if you keep reinforcing that, you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to be the better version of yourself.
Yeah, you know, I once heard John Lennon say something, because like basically if you look at that dude's life, it was like somebody asked him this later on, like after the Beatles and stuff, like right before he died, was like, hey dude, you know, you're kind of a hypocrite about all this stuff you wrote about because you're an asshole. Was basically, like, I'm paraphrasing, right?
Yeah.
But he was like, look, yeah, and you know, on the other side of all that, I am a better person, but it's like being the better person was the goal, and there's no hypocrisy in me falling short of trying.
Right.
That's so like, because anything you try, like there's what you want out of it, right? And you're, you know, you're gonna fall short of that goal, and then it's just like, how are you gonna handle that emotionally? Are you gonna beat yourself up and dwell on it, triple down on being wrong? That's another thing I've been. Then I was just listening to a book. That Dan Crenshaw book, Fortitude, is actually pretty good.
I have heard about that. Now I'm gonna add it to my actually add it to my list.
You know, I first got onto him coming on Jorgen's podcast, but man, like honestly, Navy SEALs are great leaders. Like all of the Navy SEALs material I've consumed. So I've done Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. I've done David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. And now this dude. And I'm just like, damn, we're 3 for 3 on Navy SEALs, guys. All right.
Well, okay. So you're doing your however many books in a year thing.
Yes, I'm almost at 50.
Wow. Okay. So I know for me, I'm like, damn, that's a big goal for books. But for you personally, like consuming all of this material, how is that? I mean, how is that benefited you? Like to stick to that goal and then actually internalize the things that you're consuming.
Well, it kind of depends. So like I've tried to have a wide approach. Like one thing I joke around about, I'm going back and rereading all the books I was supposed to read when I was growing up and I was in school and stuff that I didn't actually read. I like did Spark Notes or just like bullshitted, you know?
Yeah.
So there's that. So 1984 and, Animal Farm, Mice and Men, like all these classics, right? So like I got a classic going all the time. It's like, it's just leisure, it's not, oh man, this is about investments and I need to pay attention because I'm trying to invest or whatever. So but I do have some self-help, I hate to say self-help, but like I just recently listened to like Rich Dad Poor Dad, like this Fortitude book, like that's like to me, and those Goggins and the other SEALs books, like those are leadership books, right? And I'm in a leadership position, so it benefits me to consume that material. So like I didn't start getting up until 4 until I read one of those books. Right.
Oh, okay.
I was getting up at 4:30, but then this one guy was like, "If I getting up at 4:30, get up at 4." Like straight up.
I feel like you're calling me out right now.
No. Oh, okay, yeah, you did say. But basically, here's what I think it was: is this one Navy SEAL was like, "Get up at 4:30, set 3 alarms, do one this way, one." And then the other Navy SEAL was like, wrote his book after that and was like, "Yeah, that's cute. Get up at 4." But I was like, I will say, like, getting up at 4, it regulated my sleep on a whole other level. Man, before, even when I was I was getting to Morrilton at 7:30 or 8 in the morning. I was getting so much done from 4 until 7 when I left.
It's like time doubles at that time of day. Like from 4 to 6 a.m., I don't know what happens, but you're so, and I think it's because the world is so still, like there's no distractions. And for me personally, like I'm a morning person. I always have been. I haven't always been a 4:30 a.m. morning person, but like that's when my energy is really high. And that's when I can really focus and set I really set the tone for the day. Cause rather waking up right when you have to wake up, and then you don't have time to be with yourself. You don't have time to have a cup of tea or do some yoga or take a shower. Like you just go. And that is shitty. It sounds awful. Like I don't want to ever go back to that.
Well, like it is, the world really is like, it's weird because like we ran the other morning, I ran with that crazy guy I was telling you about. And we ran like, what did we do? We did a 5 miles or 10K. I don't remember. We did one or the other. I can't remember which one we did, but so we we left off from the gym. We ran down the Phoenix. We ran over the overpass, down B Street, down El Paso, through campus. And we didn't see like any cars, right? I didn't see any other runners. Yeah. It was just nothing. I mean, we started like 5 or something, I think. Mm-hmm. So, but it really, and like I've ran several times like that, like got to St. Mary's early and like ran from St. Mary's, like made a block, ran over on Parkway and like around. And until I get over to like Lakefront where there's like the stoplights and stuff, there's nothing. Like no, and running over by the old Forza, there was never any cars that time of morning. So it's weird.
It is super weird. I like the energy of that time. And it's kind of dark still. So there's almost like it seems surreal. It's like almost a dream state. I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, okay. So stemming off, you're very, to me or externally, you seem very self-disciplined. And earlier, so it kind of reminded me when we were talking about you waking up, but you had mentioned it earlier when you were talking about your reading and like meeting your metrics about how you view things. Like you don't view it as a task. Like, so when you try these things before it becomes a habit and before you maybe actually start enjoying it? Like, what is your brain telling yourself? Like, oh, this is for me and my benefit, or like, what's your thing?
Honestly, I was trying to undertake this year. It's like I have the capacity to be self-disciplined, right? And I'm self-disciplined right now. But there was just like I was self-disciplined. I feel like while I was competing for the vast majority, and like self-discipline, I feel like I'm self-disciplined in my business and stuff. But like when it came to my physical wellness, from the time I stopped competing in jiu-jitsu, which was about 3 years ago, and then I started teaching college. I got my job with that. And then I was like making excuses like, can't get up at 4. I can't even get up at 5. As a matter of fact, I can't teach morning class or anything. I got this other job. Like, so I was not doing anything and just like going into the gym at night and teaching classes. And like, I just didn't have a routine, and it's not a positive time for me. So I changed a lot of things. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to do all of these different things to ensure that I never get physically or mentally unhealthy again. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then like, okay, so the books thing, like that helps me as a historian and a professor, just like staying sharp,
Yeah.
But it also like, I don't know, there's the sense of pride in doing it. It's positive for me mentally. And some of it is like leadership and inspiration. Right. So
Yeah.
pumped up and motivated. And I'm taking little jewels from like just these little books, like that Crenshaw book. It's 8 hours. And I listen on 1.5 speed most of the time. And that's a big difference maker.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to check that out. Then I've never changed. Yeah, I was on Audible, and then I switched to Libro because of like dog yearbooks. But I like Audible selection. They have a really good selection.
They do. Audible's been a game changer for me, but and it's like probably a shitty thing to do, but I have a YouTube playlist with like a whole ton of books that are on YouTube. Yeah.
I didn't even know that there were books on YouTube.
That's where I listen to.
This is awesome.
What about Fahrenheit 454? That's where I listen to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I bet they do a lot of good classics on there.
True Grit's on there.
Yeah. That author died. Did you hear that?
Yeah. I teach that book. We read that book for my Arkansas history class I teach.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. That would be my favorite classic was Grapes of Wrath. I love Steinbeck.
So I did Mice and Men, and I've got Grapes of Wrath on the list.
Oh, so good. I think it's just because it's like relatively dark, but in a human way, not in like an over romanticized melancholy way. And there's like it was just the character development was good. I don't know. You'll see. You're gonna love it, I think. But no, I'm glad that you touched on self-discipline, because me personally, that's really what I've been struggling with. Like I do pretty good on what I like, waking up early, keeping my routine that I set, like my time management. But every so often, like there's a day where I'm like, I don't feel like it today. And I think sometimes, and I really don't know if it's the culture that we're in or like the age group, there's always that thing in the back of your mind that it's like, it's okay to slack off. We justify with other terms. Like, it's okay to slack off or take the day off because we've, I think, rationalized that as self-care. And I'm like, no, you need to stick to your goals. And so I have to get out of that sometimes. And then I think it's kind of like changing programming. You have to like deprogram yourself is what I almost think of it, because I'll wake up and I'm like, oh, well, sleeping in 2 extra hours, like I'll get 2 extra hours of sleep. That's a healthy thing. And so I justify it, like, even though I'm breaking my routine and I'm not doing the thing that I wanted to do, you could always justify something with a pretty good reason. But I'm having to learn, like, if I say I'm going to do something, fucking do it. And that's really hard.
It is. And that's like that's, I guess, personal integrity. It's self-discipline too, but it's not easy to be self-motivated, self-starting. And you got to have like a really strong why. Like, why am I doing this? And for me, like, I just got to a place where like I didn't have my life in balance. I was just working pretty much all the time because I wasn't budgeting my time. And I knew that I needed to do the logistics. Like, I knew that I could rein it in, but I didn't know how. I was just like, oh, I got super successful business and as a history professor, I do all the stuff I wanted to do and I hate it. I hate it all. And all I want to do is podcast. But Yeah. So like, but that was like for 2 years ago, for a solid year, really, I was just like, because also there's this weird emptiness in achieving all of your goals.
Yes, there is. When you finally reach like a portion of your goal, or you're like, it's like the challenge goes away, and then it's hard to create new challenges because suddenly you're balancing all these spinning plates and you're not fulfilled. But for me, it's like sometimes I don't have the energy or even the time to like not necessarily add another spinning plate, but spin one a little faster. Like it seems impossible, but I'm miserable again.
Yeah, and for me too, like just recently, it's become less about like sleeping extra and stuff like that. Like for the longest time, it was like, oh, I'm sleeping in. It's a weekend, but it's become less about just like really picking and choosing all of my experiences. And like Corey and I've been going on more walks, taking our dogs more places, and man, just doing things that we really haven't done. And like before that, we were like going, because like there's a big window where like we're just going all over the country for martial arts, right?
Yeah.
Then we're like, oh, let's go all over the country for music. We did it for martial arts, right? So we did that, and we still kind of do, and we still now there's like a balance there of like, there was such a period of time where it was like part of the mental suck was like every single weekend it was like, well, this weekend's a boxing fight, next weekend we got a jiu-jitsu tournament, and the weekend after in a different state, and then we got MMA fights, and then we have a seminar at the gym. And it would just be like, weekends. I remember one time, like it was like 3 months worth of Saturdays that like I was otherwise engaged, and like a couple of them were at my own school, but we were still doing stuff there, and it was just like, that's not fun.
It gets monotonous. Yeah.
Even though I loved, like, I was like doing all the things I loved, like it was just like, oh, this sucks. Like all I do is this, and there's no balance to it. Now it's like we do this stuff sometimes. It's not every single weekend. And on the weekends that we're not doing anything, sometimes we do nothing, but sometimes we go hike a trail at Nebo or whatever, find something that we want to go do.
And I think it's cool that you say that, because the more that I'm surrounding myself with, somewhat like-minded and similar driven people, I'm seeing that those that are very successful, or at least on their road to success, you and Cora, I like to think that I'm on the road to doing something good for the community.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like, I did want to ask you about this, because I'm sure that you experience this, right? Because I don't like it, but whatever. What's it? So like I don't have a better way to say it, but it's like we're like this weird local celebrity kind of like, I can't go anywhere without seeing anybody that wants to have a conversation with me, and people that know me that I don't even know. Like,
right.
It's
and they talk to me like they know me, because I'm
and you're more present. Of a personality than I am, but like if it's not me, it's Cora, and a lot of people know who we are. It is so it's weird. But what's that like for you, being a local celebrity? How do you do it?
It's been an interesting kind of few waves, actually. When I first started getting some notoriety locally, I really didn't like it, because to me it felt like pressure. It felt like I had a big responsibility to own up to, and I was suddenly like, for me, when I'm in the booth, like it's just me behind a mic, and I'm aware that I'm talking to hundreds, thousands of people, but I'm not faced with it. And so when I started to come face to face with those people, I'm like, oh my God, they exist. And then there was just mass quantities of them. So I avoided it. Like it was crazy. I stopped kind of going to the store. Like my partner at the time would always go and do stuff, because I'm like, I don't even want to deal with people. And I've changed my mindset a little bit as I've grown in my work, as I felt more comfortable with what I'm doing and more knowledgeable and kind of natural. I've almost embraced and I don't think it's I'm careful to say this. I don't think it's in an egotistical way, but I do try to embrace that because it really holds me to a high standard. Like surrounding myself with, or engaging with listeners, or like if I'm at Walmart, instead of trying to dip out of a conversation, I try to just at least keep it going for a few minutes because it's good feedback for me. And when I'm back in the studio the next day, I'm like, oh, these people really care and I really do know them. And so it does get exhausting because for me personally, I feel like I have to be on all the time. And with being, like you said, a personality, there's a lot of energy that goes behind that. And, you know, I wake up early. And so when it starts hitting kind of like 4, 5, 6 o'clock, I'm just really I'm just chilling. I'm chilling for the day. And with my age group, it's hard for them to like I don't do stuff at night. I don't really do stuff on weekends because what's important to me is my health. And right now, my current goal is to succeed in my career. So it's been interesting. Like at first I hated the local celebrity thing. And right now it actually has done me well because as I've changed over this last year in my professional growth, I've also changed a lot in the personal world. And kind of marrying those two things together has been challenging, but it's been such an honor. And so now that I, you know, spew all the crap that I spew on, I don't call it crap, but now that I talk about what I talk about on air, you know, positivity and practicing happiness, and I do not report negative news. Like I've made it a point not to do that. It's reinforced that idea, like I need to do this for myself, but also like, am I doing this for like, is someone else actually benefiting from this? And then that's a whole other conversation because I'm like, shit, you are getting real egotistical right now. And I have to try to keep myself in check. So it's hard. It's really hard to balance because people are blowing you up and inflating your ego. But to be like, okay, I'm just in Russellville, Arkansas, like in a non-rated market. Let's be real here.
I know. We're like, because I was thinking about this, like we're like having our little conversation in our little bubble. But like for somebody like Joe Rogan, I've heard him talk about like he one thing that bothers him, and I can only speculate, but everywhere he goes, people are like Joe. But like one thing that bothers him is if people try and talk to his kid, right? Like he's like one of his daughters with him. He's like, hey, look, buddy. Like I'll give you an autograph. You can have a picture with me, but do not talk to them. Like, it's just something that like I wouldn't have really thought about, but like there's like levels to that game. It's like with the story that I've been telling people. Like I was at Quiznos, like I was training with one of our assistant instructors. I was like, dude, let's go get some lunch, man. So we go to Quiznos and I'm standing there and I see somebody and I'm like, hey, what's up? You know, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, you know everybody. And I was like, no, I don't know that guy over there. And he's like sitting down by like the old Fredos, you know, like at a table. And then that guy's like, hey, Brian, what's up? He's like, he's pointing at me. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, I still don't know who that person is. I still have no idea who they were.
Well, and see, that's funny, though, because for people, you know, you're really vocal, like with your podcast, and you influence a lot of children and people, and there's like a ripple effect. But so many other people feel an intimate connection to me or to you, and they know me, like, because I'm authentic. I try to be authentic when I'm on air, but it's really hard to try to in real time and in person, like, embrace that intimacy, because like I don't have it. I care about you from a human standpoint, but I don't have that intimate connection with you. And so some people that I don't even know their names, they'll be like, oh, did you like roller derby? Or like, how was that kickboxing class I saw on Facebook? And I'm like, it was good. Like, because by nature, I'm not necessarily introverted, but I don't automatically intimately connect with people. Like I'm outgoing, but it takes a while for that connection to happen. So it's been really weird to balance. I'm like, man, these cats are like, they felt like they were creepy. I'm like, why are you so creepy? And then I realized I'm putting all of this out there and I'm doing my job. Like, if you remember what I'm saying, I did something, I think, right. And so it's flattering, even though it's like exhausting.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, you've become like somewhat, I guess we've said celebrity personality, but like influencer. Right. Like, because you do, like when you say, because I was like the other day, I was like, oh yeah, a ton of people are going to see that Hope checked in at the gym. Badass, you know? Big,
I
but
got you, man.
it's the same thing. Like I put out like a podcast the other day that got 2,000 views in a day
Nice.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
But across the board on my audio downloads and stuff, it did well too. But that is you know, you get to a point where like so many people are starting to consume your content you're putting out, and then I deal with about 150 students a semester every semester, and some of them take me multiple times. But man, we both, I'm sure, just have a big reach on the number of people we come into contact with or that hear us, or like I'm putting all of my lectures on YouTube now also.
Wow, that's cool. So they're like just accessible.
Yeah.
I need to check that out. I'm glad you said that. No, but it's funny, like, you know, having that reach, and it's helped me. It was intimidating because I feel like I kind of came into the position that I'm in at a very early age. So like a little bit of backstory in radio with what I do, usually the morning drive slot, which I have now, is that's the final goal. Like you start doing overnights, doing part-time, like not even on the air, you're just operating a board. And then you do like a midnight show. Then you might do like a midday show. And then after a decade or more, like you'll get that morning drive because it's prime time. And so I feel like I came into this at a really early age, and it was hard to balance, like, because man, we've known each other for a while. I've acted a fool on social media because I didn't understand, like when it first came out, like I was just a young idiot, but then I didn't understand the reach and the impact. And now it's been really beneficial, actually. Like having this reach has helped me tailor my message, and it's acted as like an accountability checkpoint. Like I try to be very conscientious about what I post because of the reach that it gets. But then it also, like, aside from the social media aspect, when I go to try to put something on social media, the dialogue that actually happens, like I have to check myself. Like, am I being logical? Am I being fair? Am I being unbiased? And it makes me a better person. Like, I feel like just the job that I have and the like local clout that people have been gracious enough to gift me has actually benefited me as a person. Like I've grown and become better from it. And so there's a lot of gratitude that goes with it, but I think it is a big responsibility by far.
Yeah. You're kind of with both of us, Cora as well, it's kind of in the public eye or spotlight. I've always felt that way ever since I've owned a business and been on social media, because like early on, we did extremely well with social media and got a lot of reach. And like, honestly, the vast majority of our leads and new members and new business that comes in the door is via social media. It's insane.
Yeah. And being like right now, because like with what I do on the side, doing media management for local businesses, I'm to a point now to where I just know, I mean, in the area that we live in, it's not huge. It's a good size for Arkansas, but it doesn't take long for word to get around. And so I've been approached by like so many different people, like, well, will you do my page, or will you do this thing? And it's actually been really kind of hard because I've had to learn to say no or to stick to my own standards, because I think maybe you and Cora, especially Cora, like you guys are such kind, giving people, and you just want to spread the message, spread the happiness, spread the joy. And when you start doing things like with Forza, like at some point you still have to be like, well, we still have membership dues, or we still have this schedule. And like me, people they'll want to do something. Oh God. And in radio, it's notorious. They're like, oh, will you just give me a shout out on air for like all this, and I'll let you do my social media stuff for a week. And they don't realize like the legalities or the formalities that go with it. And so having personal integrity through that, because sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's way simpler to just be like, yeah, in a text message, like I'll do this for that, not write up a contract, not like go through the proper channels. And sometimes you want to do that because it's convenient and it's like less paperwork and less time. But I don't know, it helps hold me accountable. And I think that's something I've been really focused on a lot lately, is personal accountability. And right now, a lot of my personal accountability is rooted in the community. Be it from waking up on time, be it from talking about like my happiness and spreading positivity kind of thing, with my substance problems that I previously had. Like if you start making things known, and you start voicing those things, it helps you, I think, in the long run rather than staying silent about it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to talk about these things. Like, that's been a point on like a lot of like the changes I make. I'm going to talk about them, right? Because it might help somebody. And really, that's like a sect of those books that I've been consuming. That's what it's like. Oh yeah, I got some things out of some of those books that helped me. That helped me with, especially like the back to those Navy SEAL books, but others too that just like, oh man, I'm motivated. I want to go run right now. Like that's a weird thing. Like I'm like, oh, I didn't want to run at all for the last 5 years, but now I do after listening to.
Now I gotta go run.
Yeah.
Well, no, and it's funny that you say that because like I've been dealing with, and maybe we touched on it earlier, but you know, people can only view things from their own lens, and people, you know, the negative viewpoints from other people really kind of make me have to ask myself a lot of checkpoint questions because they're like, oh, you're only talking about this stuff because people are it's this weird conversation where the people that are listening are telling me, oh, you're only doing this because people are listening. Like they take away my value. They want to take away my agency of why I'm doing these things. And they try to just dilute it, I think. And I don't know I don't know where it comes from. If it comes from a place of insecurity or lack of understanding, or even if there's any intent behind it at all, because I have to think that a lot of people don't think critically or can't think critically even. Like that's a huge thing. And it's hard sometimes because I care about people in a weird way. Like it takes a lot for me to care about someone like in an intimate friend, relationship, family way. But just from a general human standpoint, I love the fuck out of everybody. And it's so hard sometimes to take the negativity in and be like, I want to help you. I want to help you with this through gritted teeth. But I think those are the cases that really exercise my personal growth. And so I'm really grateful. Like I tell people all the time, like, keep the negative stuff coming. Like that helps me. And I will say something back to you that might help you. And I've actually experienced that lately. Like it's been interesting where I've gotten feedback where they'll be like, I heard this thing that you said on air, or I saw this thing you posted on Facebook, and they'll message me like, this is how it's like, and this is what works. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Like, this is so cool. And it becomes less of an echo chamber and it makes me want to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's good. Because especially right now, you have to offset. There is, especially on social media, but everywhere you turn, there is a lot of negativity right now. Like, just like I stopped at a gas station today, and some dude was talking shit to some dude about the dude where like the guy that had the mask on, the guy that didn't was making fun of him. Like I was just like, oh my God, I gotta go. Like I can't believe this is going on in here. Like he's like, hey, you want to take that mask off or something like that? And I was just like, dude, don't say that to that guy. Leave him on.
I just don't. It's okay. So the current global state of things, everyone is just functioning on a very weird heightened level. So there's that to deal with. But I've never understood. You just see it more now. But I've never understood why people are so concerned with the doings of others. Like, why? It comes from a place of genuine confusion, not like people ask questions to make other people feel bad, but I just really do not get it. Like, why are you so concerned with how another person acts or feels or behaves? Unless it's harmful. I mean, I get it if it's harmful, that kind of stuff. And I guess that's the weird territory that we're in right now. A lot of people think that the doings of others are harmful. It's I don't know what to think about it, but it's crazy because people are hateful. They're so hateful.
Oh, I know. And like, that's back to that Dan Crenshaw book. Like that's just what he talks about, is because like we're in this culture now that like somebody can latch on to what you said on social media that was like something it was taken out of context, or maybe you had a slip up and you were emotional for 2 seconds, and it was one of those things that like you deleted it 5 minutes later, but somebody screenshotted it, or whatever like that. And then somebody can do stuff to you or for themselves with that. Like, hey guys, let me share this screenshot of what Hope said on my page. She's talking shit about, you know, people not wearing masks or whatever it is. And then you get a serious backlash to that because you have a wide audience. And then by virtue of your audience and that person making you look bad, they look good. And that's that outrage culture. Like, that's what that whole book's about. I'm only at 3 hours into it, but like he keeps making a point on like social media. And this is the guy that like, he was going to vote, and I think he was voting at the election for Trump. Like, he's a Republican, right? So, and he got in an elevator with these like super aggressive veterans, and this guy had his eye blown out, right? He has an eye patch. Right, his other eye, like he like had copper and stuff in it, and he barely had his other eye saved. But he's able to have 20/20 vision through like collective lenses and surgeries. But like these guys got aggressive with him in an elevator. He never freaks out, really. I've never seen him freak out. He's always super chill and calm. But the newspaper headlines were like ripped him apart, saying that he was like avoiding these combat veterans, and I don't remember all this.
Okay, so it's funny that you say that, because silence right now is seen like as a weakness or admitting fault. Like, by not aggressively fighting for your side, you're giving in to the other one. And then I also, like, you said something about social media earlier about how, you know, people, the whole screenshot thing and the screenshot culture, and we're constantly on Facebook seeing like, well, I just blocked so-and-so, or I just did a friends list cleanup. And I find it really interesting right now, and I really don't know the source of it, but we live in this culture to where if someone dissents in any way, and not even dissents, asks questions, disagrees from a place of confusion, not even a morality standpoint, we think it's somehow healthy to literally block that person, completely stop the dialogue. And I'm seeing this behavior so often from people that are screaming unity and screaming diversity. But the moment that they're faced with that for something that they care about, they completely stop the conversation. And to me, I don't understand. Like, if you're just surrounding yourself with the same people that believe the same way as you, how on earth do you think that your message is going to get anywhere? And I see all these like hateful statuses like about masks or about social distancing right now. And it's all that you see in the comments are people supporting this person. And I'm like, which is cool. Like, I guess that's positive reinforcement for you, but your message is falling on deaf ears. It's like, you always go to the place that you're probably least wanted and least understood. And that's probably where you can make the most difference. And so I just think I hate using the word toxic, but like, it really is, I think, toxic behavior. Like, if you stop dialogue, or if you stop conversation because someone's asking questions or they're confused, or even if they disagree, that's okay. Like, I think we're perpetuating our own divide. And I've said that a lot over the years, but a lot of people just want to promote unity and promote all these things. But to me, it's just illogical, like, to continue blocking people.
Well, here's the thing about blocking people too, that like, I don't know if people realize, like, so if you're just like, okay, you're not friends with them, okay, or, you know, you don't follow them or whatever, you guys are in the same space. It's kind of like living in the same town, right? Like, you might run into each other. You might be at Walmart at the same time or something, right? But like, if you block that person, they're connected to your profile, right? There's a list of all the people you decided to block on your profile. So it's like they're permanently there. Like, there is a name of this person you hate or whatever, and you can go over here instead of them just being in the same, you know, county or whatever, metaphorically. Like, now you've attached them to yourself. Like, so it's like
with bad energy,
carry you around with me.
People want to, and I don't know if it's righteous indignation. I don't know. Part of me sometimes wants to blame like the two-party system. That gets more into your forte. Not even my thing. But it's like, it has to be this way or that way. And people don't want to acknowledge the gray area. But to me, like, everything's pretty gray. Like, there's so many different cultures, so many different age groups, so many different religious viewpoints, so many different experiences. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Think about like, there's times where like I've spent half a day, an hour doing something and it changed me. Like, and so when you think about these cumulative experiences that a person has over their life, like maybe I'm the anomaly. Like I like to just study people. And I think most people don't want to do that. They just want to like live their lives and make some money and then die. And they don't want to have a conversation. They don't want to learn. And oh man, people do not want to grow because it is uncomfortable and painful. And the moment that they're faced with uncomfortability, they think it's wrong. Like they think I'm doing something wrong. It's uncomfortable. Or this whole notion right now, like I might be getting in the weeds, but I think the awareness right now, like with mental health, really good thing. Like we should be aware. But to me, it's almost crossed a point to where we're giving credence to like, well, I'm anxious or I'm depressed, I'm this and that. And we just keep saying that. Like it's this reason or that. And I don't think we do things to, this is a blanket statement. And for anyone listening out there, I'm not trying to offend you, but like, stop saying that you're anxious. Stop saying I am depressed. I am anxious. I am this. You can say I feel this or I'm going through this, but like words mean things and even inner monologues mean things. And I think we dig our own ruts. Like, well, this person's toxic or I'm anxious or I'm depressed. And we hold those as self-truths and we don't break away from them because we've embraced them on like an intimate spiritual level. And then how do you break away from that? And so going back to what I said earlier, I have to speak my reality. Like I speak what I want and I try to manifest it. So I do. There's a lot of times I feel fake. I feel phony because there's times where I'm like, I'm on the verge of an anxiety attack. Like I really feel like that, but I'm going to speak what I want because over time, like hopefully I'll get the results that I want.
No, I mean, yeah, like that's one thing I really like about the podcast I do. Like I talk to so many people that like I'm constantly talking about things I got going on in my head, so it like gets it out into reality. But also I've noticed this, like I started back around the time I started making a lot of changes. I started doing and I don't do it every day. I need to be more strict with it, but journaling, like writing my thoughts down. Because I noticed like it's kind of like that's the part where like I write things down that like I maybe wouldn't talk to you about. Not like bad things like I want to kill that guy that was on the interstate earlier to put me off, you know, because this dude cut me off, then put me off. And I was like, do you see the car? You see what we're doing here? All right. You probably have a gun and you're crazy. So I'm just going to go home. But you know, like I would like maybe write something like that down, right? But like things that I write down is like stuff that I'm like trying to come to terms with, you know, like, man, I was thinking the other day how this just hadn't like how my family dynamic in this way hasn't been the same since my grandma passed away, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And then after I write it down, I'm much more likely, I find, to talk about it. And so it becomes this process of getting it out, whether that be to Cora or to one of my friends or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like, there's been, it's kind of like that with the art of tidying up, like, it's like you have to go through these mechanisms to like, yeah, this flash drive is cool, but it's the first flash drive I ever owned. It's 512 megabytes. Like I got this 1 terabyte flash drive. Now I don't need that anymore. That served its purpose. But like they had these processes how you can let go of things, you know. And
I think it's cool that you journal because I used to journal until I learned there's all these different ways of journaling. So I've recently got into like more bulleted journal, like keywords or emotions or just like this situation. Yeah, like that's how I function in my day-to-day. So why can't I journal like that? And for me, I found that journaling helps me come to terms with how I actually feel about something over time instead of word vomiting my initial reaction, because we have the tendency right now to word vomit publicly and then you put yourself in this bubble. because people won't want to see you different, and you don't want to feel fake or that you lied or that you're not true to yourself. And so you just kind of keep that dialogue. And I think it's really important as individuals that we have our own process for just us. And I think sometimes right now it's hard because it's like intimacy is being pushed, like with a spouse or with a best friend or with like a parent. Like, tell them everything, have that person, like, yeah, have that person, but you like have yourself. Like, love and trust yourself to like go through these processes, because a lot of times things that I feel really strongly about, positively or negatively, that really changes over time. If it's on a really intense end of the spectrum. And so like, journaling helps me realize how I actually feel, like what my center and my homeostasis is, rather than just like, blah, like this is how I feel right when something happens, because it puts us in a bubble.
Yeah, that's, I've gotten over the last, and I need to go down this rabbit hole more, because I'm only listening to meditations right now by Marcus Aurelius, but really, what we're kind of talking about is stoicism, right? Of like not having a crazy emotional outburst. Right. And so like there's things I like with journaling, but like there's things I think you can do to temper your response. But what always gets me is like when you're sideswiped with something unexpected, like whatever it is, like where you respond poorly because it was out of the norm. And that's when like either what I was thinking about stoicism earlier when you mentioned something, because stoicism is like the most timeless principles to live by that you're going to come across, right? But there are a lot. There's Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius. There's several folks out there to kind of like dive into, but interesting. I gotta finish
jot down those names.
Yeah.
And what meditations are you listening to?
It's Marcus Aurelius. It's called meditation. So he was what they call he's called the movie Gladiator. Okay, so the emperor in the beginning, the old guy that dies, that guy being depicted is Marcus Aurelius, right?
Really?
Yeah. So he has a classic. Oh, whoops! I turned it on. He has a classic on Stoicism it's just called Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. It's about a 5-hour listen. So
that's not bad.
It's not. It's totally doable. But I haven't finished it yet. But like Jeff Woods, one of my mentors, a guy that's really he just always has sound and good advice about everything. But he suggested I'm always hitting him up for book references and suggestions that he said I should check that one out. So
I will need to add that to my list, because it definitely sounds right up my alley, and something that would help me too. Like I talk about things often. The things sometimes my listeners don't realize this, but often the things that I'm vocalizing, unless it's really intense, are things that I'm trying to work through, because I'm a vocal learner. So if I get like stuck in my head, it kind of becomes, it's just unhealthy for me. And I hate sometimes I hate using my listeners and my friends as like my personal scapegoats and like my like whiteboard for life, but it really does help me. And so it's interesting that you say, like, I'm glad we're talking about these things right now, because I'm like, oh shit, I just learned something about myself, and he's got this great resource that's going to help me in the things that I'm regurgitating.
Yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, was just some guy I was talking to the other day who I really respect as an entrepreneur and a business guy, and I was just like, we're wrapping up the podcast, and I was like, hey dude, last thing here, like what sort of book suggestion do you have for me? And he was like, he like turned his camera to like his bookshelf and was like, oh, I got suggestions. But man, I've come across so many great book references, and because I'm doing the book thing right now. It's like, just like with this conversation earlier, like how we got onto it, tons of people were like, saw you're listening to books, like, hey, well, check this one out. And I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. I'm actually there's one I've read it before, and I see a lot of people reread it. I'm probably going to butcher this. The seven habits of highly successful.
Oh yes, that is on my. Did I just recently 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Yes, I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I need to reread
I
that
had
one.
an actual, I've read that one too. And I had an actual, no, I still do. Actually see it on the bookshelf in there. I have an actual hard copy of it, but I think it has some like water damage or something. So I just went ahead and got the audio book. It's like 13
Oh,
hours long.
is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. But you said, okay, so you read at 1.5 speed?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the book. Like
Mm-hmm.
I haven't found any books that like 1.25 is too fast. But if you have a fast reader, the 1.5 is kind of, it can be too fast. So. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's probably how you get through so many books. Okay, so sometimes I struggle with like wanting to read a book because I want to ingest it all at the same time, like when I'm in that mode, and I'm like, shit, I don't have 9 hours. Like I've got 30 minutes. And so recently I've gotten on the subreddit, the Zen subreddit, and I've been looking at koan breakdowns. It's like these Buddhist riddles basically, and then people's interpretations of them. And it is fascinating. It's like you should totally check it out. But yeah,
I should, yeah.
it's the Zen subreddit, and it talks about it's basically conversations between like a guru or a master and their student is kind of the format that it takes. And so it'll show the conversation, like the dialogue from a person, and then like the breakdown from the user. And it's fascinating. And aside from the breakdown itself, like the comment section, it's just a really good study of the perception, I think, of the world around us and like the perception of ourselves. So sometimes when I'm like, I don't want to commit to a book, I'll get on the Zen subreddit for like 30 or 45 minutes and go through some koan breakdowns, and it kind of gets the same result.
I should check out and see if there's a subreddit for Taoism. That's something
There is.
I listened to a few books on Taoism so far. There's one called the Tao of Pooh, like Winnie the Pooh.
Really?
And it's all the Taoist principles through the story of Winnie the Pooh.
That would be a fun teaching tool, I think.
It's super short too. I want to say it's like less than 5 hours. But then also another one called The Wandering Taoist that is, oh, it's so good. It's about this little boy who goes to live in a monastery and like grows up there and then leaves and goes and fights like Chiang Kai-shek and all this stuff, like when China has civil war. And then it's a while, but then that author who wrote Wandering Taoist, he has written several other books. So I checked out a couple of those. But yeah.
What's your favorite, or maybe not favorite, in your studies? What's been your most useful or pragmatic, like personally pragmatic philosophy?
Oh, probably logic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, logic and ethics, I think, are the two most like rational and beneficial to real world applicability, because ethics, I took 2 ethics courses, and just like a survey about ways to potentially view and behave and look at complex questions and issues. Like one of them, one of the ethics courses I took was contemporary moral issues, but it was like I did independent research on like suicide, euthanasia, capital punishment. But like, and then logic, like what you're talking about with list making and stuff. After I got super into logic, that like changed the way that I organized all of my information. So like, I honestly think it changed the way that I like process information.
Yeah.
So like now, like I organize information differently in my head after having gone through logic. I like sort it oddly. Like, and what's weird is like a lot of it is concepts that you would learn in math. But it's because math is based off logic. Logic came first. But it's based on math. So like, but like honestly, since it was presented to me in a number format, I don't think I retained it. Right. So like there was
no meaning. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, in honestly, logic like uses equations to solve arguments and a lot of similar crossover, but logic just spoke to me. It rewired the way I like take in this information I'm getting from these books, for example.
Yeah.
But, ethics and logic are 2 of my favorite sort of branches. And then you get into like empiricism, right? Really? Like I'm pretty into empiricism. I never got to take a class on it, but like empiricism is the way you view the universe. right?
I would like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also epistemology, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like these are like the big subsets of philosophy. Like epistemology would be like the theory of knowledge, right? So like you would say something to me that you hold to be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would be like, whatever it was, and I would be like, Hope, how do you know that's true? Where did you hear it? And you would say, well, I read it in this book. And then I would say, what book? And then you would tell me the book. And then I would say, well, how do you know that author? Well, why? And then we would go see if the, it would just be
So
like,
it's it's trying to like find the original source almost.
essentially, yeah. So
Huh.
that, and then you also get into, and this is a little bit of ethics too, but like whether or not I would be able to ever convince you that 2 + 2 is actually 5. Moral relativism, right?
Yeah.
Or just relativism in general of like, is the truth relative or is it objective? Or like, is 2 + 2 always 4, or is it going to be 5 in 100 years?
Yeah. And that's another thing, like sometimes, and I don't know if it's necessarily like linguistics, but why is it always true? Like just because we name something this thing, and in 99.9% of cases it's always true, but like why is there a truth, and why
Yeah.
does there have to be a truth? Like why can't everything be, and I think it probably has to do like, well, we needed to create rules for a society to function and there not be chaos. I kind of get that, but at the same time it's like why does something have to be black and white?
Yeah, well, and part of it is linguistics, and like with objective truth, like I say, like the truth is in the object. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, this is a pen, but if you've never seen a pen, they don't have pins where you come from or when you come from or whatever, you wouldn't know what a pen was. It's like,
Yeah.
so somebody from another culture could easily show me something and say the word, and I'd be like, we don't even have one of those where I live, bro. Like
Exactly.
I've never seen that. Or know the word. So there's that too. But like, well, then you start getting back into that epistemology. Like, okay, so where did we get the knowledge that this is true? Right? Like, it's
Yeah.
just like following the breadcrumbs.
Hmm. I wonder if I've always wondered if things like, it's weird to think about, but if things like truths or if things like, moral or cultural relativism, does that actually put us in a bubble? Are we actually hurting ourselves in a long macro sense? Like in a micro sense, it makes sense. Like we're in this decade, we're in this century, whatever. But over the course of things, like, because I don't think we can conceptualize either the positive outcomes or the detriment that we're doing. And so we just keep doing it because it works. And I think like we see it in relationships all the time. You don't change something because it's as good as you've had and nothing bad's happening, but maybe you're questioning it or maybe you're not satisfied, but you just keep doing it because it gets you from day to day. And we don't take the time. I think some people don't take the time, and I think some people can't take the time because they're surviving or they lack critical thinking skills, but to even think about these things. And then what's the repercussions? Like what if we, worst case scenario, what if we broke down all of our truths? What would that be? Total anarchy? Would it be unity? Would it be like, what would it be? And would that
Yeah,
be better?
utopia or dystopia.
Exactly.
Well, and that's like all of the, well, like idealism. That's another thing. Like I've thought a lot about, because honestly, I've kind of charted the fact that I'm an idealist. Like it's probably
Mm-hmm.
kind of obvious to a lot of people, but too much idealism is bad. That's actually a Carl
Mm-hmm.
Jung quote. But it can be, because if you're an idealist, your ideal could be wrong in whatever way you're trying to deploy it, and then that's
Mm-hmm.
when you do something stupid like triple down on it, like, oh
Yeah.
no, I can't let go of my original idea that's not working even though it's costing me tons of money, right? Or whatever it is. But
Well, and that's a weird thing. Like I think some people, like with idealism, some people, it's easy to just apply that to like personal goals instead of idealism in other ways. And it's weird because